I want to explore our tendency to hold things in fantasy and how that can perhaps get in the way of those things being a reality. So I'm not anti fantasy. In some things they can be great. However, the challenge with fantasy is when it gets in the way of something becoming a reality. And so it's kind of this reality versus fantasy inquiry that I want to work with today. And to give it, let me give you an example. It's actually an example of my own life. So you get to learn yet a little more about me. And as you may know, because I've referred to this before, is I have been dating. Okay, I'm a single guy and I am dating because I would like to have a romantic partner relationship. I want to have a relationship with a woman here in Ashland, Oregon. And so and the other thing that you need to know is I have a life coach that I talk to about my issues, which you're going to see can come in very handy. So I'm talking to my coach, and it's a little bit, I'm talking to my coach about this woman that I know. She's kind of an acquaintance slash friend person that I met in my yoga class, and I'm just kind of telling my coach that, I wonder, I feel this connection. I feel this connection, and I wonder what that's about. And she immediately just kind of pounced on this and she's like, well, you need to find out if it's real or not. And I said, well, that could be kind of awkward. We're both in the yoga class and, and she's like, well, she's like, as you're telling me about this, she says, you've thought about this quite a bit. And you need to determine if it's real or not. So long story short, I won't get into details beyond that. I ended up reaching out to her. Because of the situation, I chose to do it via text, which I don't typically advise, but this was a good situation for that. And I basically tried to have this text that wasn't too awkward or too weird and just say, hey, I felt this connection and just wondering what the nature of that is. And could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be a past life? Could it be a friendship? Could it be a romantic thing? I wonder what it is. Were you? And anyway, I'm paraphrasing a lot, but I tried to say it in a way that hopefully didn't make her feel too awkward. And about a couple hours later, I got this amazing text back, and she was really clear. She's like, yes, I do feel a connection too. However, I feel that to be more of a intellectual and a spiritual connection, but I don't feel that to be a romantic connection. And so it was like, cool. I mean, maybe not totally cool because I would have been better, perhaps, because, I kind of liked her if it would have been romantic, but now I know, right? It's like this has been going on for months. I wonder, blah, 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 blah. And now I know. So it no longer takes up psychic energy. It's no longer in this fantasy, I wonder if it's true kind of deal. And and there's a lot of kind of payoffs for keeping things in fantasy because there's the possibility of maybe it will be something, and I don't have to deal with the find the courage to act on it. I don't have to ask her out or do ultimately what I ended up doing. And I can just be kind of kept here. It's like, well, maybe, maybe. And then when I kind of work with it, it's like, well, what is the maybe? And this is and what it came down to, it's like, well, maybe if, I saw her downtown and, and we would have a drink and then it would come out that actually I kind of, have a thing for you too, and then it would magically, we would decide we're a couple or whatever, or we would go out or we would hook up or whatever, and it's just like, that's just not realistic thinking. I mean, it could happen, but to have that be kind of the default strategy, to keep it in fantasy, and then maybe something will happen. Maybe we'll cross paths at some. And meanwhile, it's taking up like it's taking up room in my mind, and so it's not very efficient. But there are some really good payoffs, right? It's not only relationship, of course, that we do these things. It could be, well, I could have a new business, or I could start a new business, or I could do a new project, or I could ask my boss for a raise, or and maybe I could get a raise, or maybe I could do this, or maybe I could have a partnership, or maybe I could invite my friend to be a business partner. And it's like there's just a lot of it that we hold in this. We don't take action, but we think, I wonder if that would be, and we kind of just keep it there at this fantasy level. It's kind of similar when I've spoken videos before about in a relationship having kind of what I call 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? And so the relationship isn't fulfilling to us in the ways we'd like it to be, but yet we don't want to either do something about it and risk bringing the relationship to a halt, to an end. So we kind of keep in this quasi relationship thing, and it prevents us. It's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just realize when you keep it in the quasi 1 foot in, 1 foot out, it prevents the relationship. You're not kind of bringing it to a head. It prevents the relationship from either being a fulfilling relationship, or, God forbid, finding out that it's not going to be a fulfilling relationship. And then you have the option to actually end that relationship so you can find a fulfilling relationship, one that has a shot at being fulfilling. And I'm not suggesting you should do that, but just make a conscious choice with these things. When we stay 1 foot in and 1 foot out, that's what we get. The likelihood of that relationship becoming fulfilling is very little if we don't push it. Like if we go to the other and say, hey, I want this relationship to be more fulfilling. Now that's risky. Maybe the other person doesn't want that. But it kind of lets you know, almost like it did when I sent the text, right? It brings it to a head. It's like, can this be a fulfilling relationship? Or is this person even wanting what I call a fulfilling relationship? Or do they like it the way it is? And so it's the same thing with fantasy. When we keep things, 1 foot in, 1 foot out is the one version of it. And it's kind of a version of fantasy, right? It's similar in fantasy. It's like, well, maybe she will like me, maybe she won't. Maybe I could start a business. Maybe I would succeed at this. Maybe I won't. But it kind of takes me off the hook. But the challenge, and there's many, many payoffs as I've described, because I don't have to risk things. It's not awkward. There's no rejection. I don't hurt people's feelings. I don't, all those things. It's messy when we challenge fantasy and we challenge the 1 foot, 1 foot out. It's messy. People could get hurt. Maybe a relationship ends. Maybe I'll end up alone. It's scary, and it's messy. And however, if we want a fulfilling relationship, then it serves us to move it from the fantasy, move it from the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and bring it into reality, And so then it's like this. Let's find out if this fantasy or this dream or this relationship potential, whether this has legs or not. Like, let's find out if it can be real. And that I think is a spiritual practice. And my spiritual teacher I worked with for many years, he was really against fantasy. He's like, no, you can't indulge in fantasy, as he'd say. And I said, gee, he's kind of harsh. I was younger. He's kind of harsh, he got no sense of humor. Sometimes fantasy can be fun, right? What's wrong with that? But now I'm seeing like, oh, this is why he didn't like fantasy. because it's this refuge that we can kind of hide in. It's all fun and games until it takes us from having a fulfilling relationship. It's all fun and games until it takes us away from having a real relationship or a real project or a real partnership or a real new business, a real new place to live, a real community. Whereas like it's much less threatening to just kind of, wow, wouldn't that be nice? And so luckily I have a good coach, which I suggest you get one of those too, that's able to say, she doesn't buy the wouldn't it be nice thing, or I wonder if this, I think we might have a connection. She's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No thinking you have a connection. You need to find out if there's a connection or not and how she feels about this. So a good coach, she won't let me indulge and just like my last teacher wouldn't. She won't let me indulge and reside in this fantasy place, this place that I'm not testing and not taking action and not seeing if it's real or not. She won't let me indulge in fantasy. She won't let me stay in 1 foot out. Now, you don't need a coach to do that. You can hold that practice for yourself. I just happen to be, I've learned it from 2 different spiritual teachers, her and the one before. But you don't need a teacher to do it, but it is a practice to, when you have a thought or a fantasy or a maybe or an idea, to not stay in the maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, maybe it is real, maybe it isn't. Like the practice is to see if it's real by taking action, asking questions, exploring it, seeing if it's real. And that is a risky and challenging path. It's not, it can be awkward, it can be messy, but it increases the likelihood that you can actually have the thing you want in reality. You can have a fulfilling relationship. You can have your own business because you're taking action. And if that's not true, you could try someone else. If there's not a connection with her, there can be a connection with someone else. If there's not, this business isn't going to work, another one could work. If this project isn't going to work, well, let's do another one. So it's keeping it active and dynamic, and it's not settling for fantasy. It's not settling for 1 foot, one foot in, 1 foot out. It's not settling for an all right relationship, but it's less than what I really want. And because you deserve to have what you want, but the prize of having what you want goes to the people that are willing to see if it's real or not. So that is my video. Thank you so much for watching. And as you go through your week and into the holidays, it's a perfect time. I call winter the time of introspection, to kind of challenge some of these things and to see if you have any fantasy or any 1 foot, 1 in, 1 foot out thing with anything, relationships or projects or whatever, or any fantasy where you're just, and then take one of those things and then maybe challenge it to see if it's real. And so you can get some traction and actually start creating the thing that you'd actually like to have for yourself. And I will see you in a week.